What's going on, guys? This is Lucas from L&J Financial.
This is Julian.
And we're coming at you with the purpose to motivate and inspire a new generation of financial literacy and personal growth. And we are happy to be the gatekeepers to the success.
How you doing, guys?
Hope you're doing amazing. Hope you had an amazing week, as always. Guys, market kind of rebounded last week. As you could see, I don't know if you're following it. For those of you that weren't following it, it did rebound from the week before, given the less turbulence of AMC and GME. Julian, do you think anything of this? Like, do you think what were your thoughts initially on the AMC GME runs?
Yeah, it was a great runs if you guys had some money invested into them. But we're not going to talk too much about GameStop and AMC because personally we stay away from companies like those here on the podcast.
We do.
But if you guys took any of our advice on last podcast, it was a great buying opportunity. Not last week, but the week before. Mm-hmm. And as we saw a comeback on the S&P 500. We had basically 5 days in a row of green push-ups, and we're also pushing our all-time highs right now as we speak on the S&P, right around $388, I think.
387, but yeah.
But basically. Just that's something to keep in mind. That's the highest it's ever been in the entire history of the S&P 500. So
we're continuously hitting new highs.
Yeah, I would expect a pullback, and I would be a little mindful entering companies right now because we are pushing all-time highs. But as soon as we see that pullback, that's what we say is the best time to get in.
Yeah,
as soon as it comes down, it's a discount. Get in on those companies and wait for that correction to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, pullbacks provide terrific buying opportunities, like we said, always. I mean, you should be happy, but the key thing is if you're well positioned. If you're well positioned in an equity, you shouldn't have to worry about it too much, right? Because when it falls down, you're leveraged correctly, you don't need to really worry about it. But yeah, like we said, my thinking is this. I'm thinking all the people that had money in AMC and GME were pulling money out of other equities that they had positions in. That's what created a turbulent market. And then we had these AMC, GME, Nokia, all these other very fluctuating, I wouldn't even call them companies, just these bankrupt ecosystems people flooding money into, and it was taking money out of other equities, which was the entire S&P. I mean, companies like the big tech and whatnot. But that's what happened this past week was the money was flowing back into them, and the turbulence kind of subsided, and that's where we saw that growth. For those of you, we haven't really talked too much about calls and puts, but if you put calls on any S&P, any Dow Jones Industrial, I mean, you would have made great fortune this week. I mean, just predicting that rebound. I mean, I saw it coming that week before, but like we said, always continuously look for those opportunities to buy.
Yep. And yeah, and this whole GameStop and AMC, Nokia, BlackBerry, this whole situation with these short squeezes, it really is just, for me and Lucas, I know personally, it really just solidifies the idea that the stock market is just about what people think companies are valued at. It has nothing to do with really what companies are valued at, and it really just shows you with a mass group of people buying a stock, you can drive up the price and get it super high, and you just got to be mindful and watch for these companies because all it takes is a belief, a news press or something that gets people to think a company is doing something. And that's how you see stock movement.
And that's how the Wall Street Bets operates, and that's honestly that's how hedge funds manage their equities. They're the ones before the press. They get in before the press, and then the press hits the first 3 articles on Bloomberg or US or Weekly or whatever, and then it shoots up. So it's being that kind of. It involves being an activist investor, continuously doing your due diligence and research, and being there because you will predict those runs if you get good enough. I mean, me and Julian are just starting to do that. Like this. Us 6 months ago where we weren't doing this. I think we did it once with Nicola. Mm-hmm. Julian showed it to me. Nicola was a SPAC, S-P-A-C, a special acquisition company. We talked about this in our first podcast, but they merged and they kind of were all smoke and mirrors, or they were kind of BS.
Yeah. But yeah, it just shows you that you can get a stock price to go up on fake news, on lies, and on really anything. So what we're going to talk about is basically today is really how to get in on these companies before even news comes out about these companies.
And really, that market is cannabis.
And yeah, it's cannabis. We're going to be talking about cannabis today, the Mary Jane
stocks.
The ganja. We're going to be talking about, regardless what you think about it, we're going to be hitting you with some facts on how to make money on these companies. And so basically I'm going to get right into it. We're really looking at this cannabis industry as this as a really big emerging market in the next 7 to 10 years. Personally, me and Lucas talk all the time about how, the overall stock market is super overvalued. Like Tesla, these big tech companies are getting, stock prices up way high.
I mean, we got to keep in mind, like, Tesla just reported positive earnings for the first time ever. Like, that's ever. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, what are they at, 800 something a share? I don't know.
EV companies is that was the emerging market this last couple months is electric vehicles.
It still is, but today we're going to talk about this. If you really want to talk about an emerging market, I would even call it a developing, in the womb market. This hasn't even been born yet.
Yeah,
and before we even talk about cannabis, I know there's a lot of, what's the word for it? Like, there's controversial news about cannabis, whatever. You don't need to smoke it. You don't need to do CBD. It doesn't matter. You can invest in something you don't do. For example, like, I have money in restaurant businesses. Do I work in restaurants? No, I don't. So being an investor is seeing the value in a company, whether it has good ethics. It has to have good ethics, of course. But cannabis is a very developing industry, huge developing industry. And think of it, this hasn't even have, Julian's going to talk about it. You're going to be leading this discussion mostly. So Julian's going to be enlightening me as well as you guys on this. But Julian, just start with this. Like, what are your thoughts on it right now, the current market, and what it's going to be?
Well, I think that right now it's the first time in ever, really, that we've had an administration behind this proposition to make cannabis federally legal for the first time in U.S. history. And what we're seeing is over the last 5 years of it being medically legal and recreationally legalized in some states, is they're gaining insane profits. Like 1 out of 10 people in some states have medical licenses to go buy marijuana. So it just shows you the tax opportunity that the government is going to be looking at to gain, profit off of these, retail places selling marijuana recreationally. So if you guys feel like you missed out on like that EV run up and those Bitcoin, fintech, huge,
which are still in their infancy.
Yeah, they're still in their infancy. But what we're saying is, you got to get in on these companies before, those 50% days happen when the news drops and you're too late by then. And that's the thing, you end up chasing those stocks, and we're looking at a market here that's potentially going to be worth over $100 billion potentially in the next 10
I think
years.
It's way more. I mean, me and Julian were just talking about it on the way here when we were about to record in the car about cannabis can be compared to the tobacco industry of the United States when it first started. I mean, for those of you that don't know, America was basically built on tobacco. That's how we started, There's a lot of moral ethics that were involved with it. But the point is cannabis is that next direction. It's the next step. It's a lot healthier. I mean, obviously there's downsides, but the point is that is the next thing.
Yeah, the government is greedy. They want to make the most money on the most things as possible. And we see that, in medicine, prescriptions, like our government makes bank off of prescribing people like drugs basically. So if there's a money opportunity, cigarettes, alcohol, same example. They don't really care. It's not about the health. And in a way it is about the health, but in the big picture, it's about what's going to make them the most money.
What's going to bring in the most taxes.
Exactly. And when you have 1 out of 10 people buying marijuana medically in states, it shows
air quotes around that.
It shows you that there's a huge demand for it, and people are buying it regardless if they have a medical condition that would require them to.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a market that, I've been, looking at for the last couple of years, and we're going to get into some companies, for example, but they start out, they IPO super high, and they went into the thousands, and over the last 5 years, they've been just on a downtrend, getting shorted by these companies because there isn't that much of a belief that, or at least for the last 5 years, there wasn't that much of a belief that federally this would become a legal drug for people to go buy. You can walk into a store being 21 and just buying it.
Yeah, but I think as we're seeing is more and more states every single year is it's being legal in those states. I mean, now I think there's more than half the states in the United States are legal, and we're from California. If you didn't know, and California is one of the first states, except with Colorado and I don't know another one, that got it legally first, and it changes the whole entire game, and it's gonna take that, but it might take a couple years to get it federally, but. I mean, it'll basically be federal at some point because eventually all the states will have it legal, And then the government's gonna go, well, every state has it legal, might as well make it a federal law. And when that happens, it'll bring in not just domestic cannabis companies. I'm thinking international. I mean, anywhere from Canada, South America, Europe. It's gonna bring in everything.
Yeah.
And Julian's gonna keep talking about this. I mean, I'm gonna keep the ball rolling. I mean, I was looking at a CNBC video, and I saw that Canopy Growth, or a company called Canopy Growth, had a valuation of $200. $200 was trading at. I think it's the highest valued currently traded cannabis company right now, and the majority of them are averaging $15 a share.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's cheap, and yeah, it's like I said, these companies, you can go in and look at their last 10 years of when they IPO'd, and you can see there's a trend amongst them all of a huge spike, a huge run up, because people were like, oh shoot, cannabis is out, like this is a new market, whatever. But it was never federally legal. So that's the thing. It's always been a statewide decision on whether to make it legal recreationally, whether it's medically. Some states nothing at all.
Yeah.
And we're at a point where almost all 50 states have it legalized, at least medically, that they're bringing in so much revenue and so much taxes to the state. The Fed is going to want to have a piece of that. Eventually it's too much money to pass up.
100%. And the government, like you said, will do anything they can to get more tax dollars into the system. And I think that with the growing demand and the popularity of it, because it's gone from a taboo subject in the United States. Literally, it was illegal to literally incarcerate individuals.
Yeah.
That's what it was designed for, the law against it. And then the culture's kind of shifted. And with culture shifting, so does demand and the economics behind things. And that's what this industry is. This is still in its absolute infancy. That's what everyone's been saying for years, and they're so correct, and they're still correct to this day. Because in 10 years from now, you're going to be looking back. And this is long hold. We're not saying next week this is a huge catalyst. In 2 weeks this is a huge catalyst. We're talking about 6 months to a year to extend. This is time to start milling into those companies and developing a portfolio. Maybe you just start $200 to buy a whole bunch of low cap cannabis companies, and you go, what? I'm not going to look at this for 2 years, because I tell you, 2 years, 2.5 years, you'll have doubled your money.
It's like owning your shares of Tesla for $15 a share right now.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. Like you got to think long term here, and potentially, yeah, these companies are going to see, just like the EV companies did, really huge days, really big spikes, and then they're going to have sell-offs because they're overvalued for that week, on that RSI. But in the long term, in the big picture of this market, getting in and putting some money into, we're going to talk about a couple companies, but the cannabis sector for the next, I'd say 10 years, by 2030, you will have one of the biggest returns in your portfolio.
100%. And just to give some perception behind this, so some description of this, like visualization, is you walk into any 7-Eleven, any gas station, and you see how many selections you have for tobacco products. I mean, look behind the cashier. You have like 20.
Yeah.
Do that with cannabis, and that's how many individual cannabis companies that are going to be cash generative, cash flowing, income generating companies. And that's just how many stocks you're going to have to pick from. And they're all in their infancy, and I can imagine the next 3 years, the amount of SPACs coming out with cannabis-esque stuff, cannabis ETFs. I'm pretty sure there's a cannabis ETF. Let me pull it up, but no, looking into it right now. Yeah, but Julian, keep talking about that the growth of this potential.
Yeah, no, I think that it's just, for me, it's one of the, personally, what I believe is the most undervalued sector that, in the market right now, because, a lot of these EV companies, a lot of these tech companies that are technically the future of, one of the biggest companies in the world, they're kind of overvalued right now. A lot of them are hyped up a little too much, and, it's not necessarily, I'm not that comfortable taking a big position on some of these, companies, because they've already had these, initial run-ups, and I would be chasing at that point. And that's when I want to look at myself and be like, what's the next sector that's going to be like this? And that's what I think cannabis is. And I think that the market, like I said, in 10 years from now, you're going to be looking at multiple companies over $100 a share.
Yeah.
It's going to be just like a new EV comes out every week, and it runs up 20%. Like, this sector is so undervalued, and there's so many companies that have been reporting consistent revenue that when they sign a bill federally making this legal, it's going to be foot on the gas.
100.
No pun intended.
Yeah, literally foot on the gas. That's funny. Yeah, but yeah, 100%. I mean, the growth of this industry is huge, and we're not saying this is like I said, it's not like next week's play. This isn't even in the next 6 months. Yes, like with a Biden administration, doesn't guarantee a federal legalization of marijuana. It increases its chances. There's a lot more people that support it. But Biden himself, I've seen, is still shaky on that matter. But what it is it's a progressive administration. I mean, I think all humans, every society is progressive. That's how we've gotten to where we are today. And with that will come changes in our, like I said, our societal beliefs. And the societal belief, that marijuana, like weed's good or whatever, it's because it's gone less taboo, and that's just grown the market even more. And I think the big takeaway is this: do your due diligence, look into all the cannabis companies you can, and really maybe have a portfolio of 5 to 10 that you really like that are maybe not super cash generative, or they're starting to get cash generative, good earnings, or beginning of good earnings, and throw in a couple bucks and hold. If they're good holds to have. But also you can do the thing. What I'm doing, my strategy right now is I have a watch list, and I'm going to wait for the catalyst to show up. If I see, okay, 1 or 2 more things happening, then you start buying. So it's really doing that. But that's the big takeaway from today.
Yeah, and just to get a little specifically on the chart analysis on some of these cannabis stocks, like I say, we look for trends, and across 10 different stocks that I've been looking at, they all follow this similar trend of starting out super high 5 years ago and have been on a straight downtrend until basically December or January of this past year, have been showing that it's starting to curl up. And they've been dropping little bits of news talking about more states legalizing. The Fed is talking about, we've been waiting to see if they're going to be making a bill. I have read that there are some bills being passed, and it's more about the Senate right now holding it back. And but yeah, no, these companies, they're curling back up, and we look for 3 white soldiers, and I'm noticing 3 white soldiers on a lot of these cannabis companies, showing that they have potential, at least.
Just so people know, like, what's kind of like a good description of 3 white soldiers?
I talked about last podcast, but it's basically like 3 green confirmation candlesticks on the chart that show price strength above the RSI 70 bar, basically, or not 70 bar, but the relative strength index.
Yeah.
But it shows that there's price strength and there's momentum gaining on these companies right now as we speak. And one specifically I just want to talk about is CRON, Cronus Group. I think everyone should just check that out right now in their portfolio. But it's a cannabis company, and it's basically it owns like about 10 different companies in Canada, all over the world, and they're targeting everyone basically. And it's basically, there's a lot of front runners for cannabis, but as we're talking about retail for cannabis brands, CRON is something I just want you guys to look at. It's one of those. Had an initial spike on news and has been cooling off.
I have
it
right now.
It's curling back up with some confirmation bars. It's just looking really good, short term and long term. If you guys want to add that to your watch list, keep an eye on it. Wait for in a couple weeks we could be getting more news on this too. And these stocks go crazy.
It just takes a catalyst. Literally next week, we don't know anything. The next week, it can go, okay, Biden administration in works of talking about a legalized cannabis deal for the United States or whatever it is. Boom, these stocks, every single one of them, doesn't matter if this is cannabis in the description of the company, will go up at least 10%. And those are the catalysts, those are the runs that we're saying. Just do your due diligence and get in there, and you definitely will see a return on your money. As long as you choose companies that are obviously backed, and a lot of these companies are in their infancy. Some of these won't even be in business in a while, but it's really doing your due diligence, looking at those companies, looking at the good ones that have a good background. Go on their websites. Sometimes, depending on your brokerage, they provide you websites. See what they're all about. See who's running them, and you get a good feel for, okay, this is a company that's going to be here for a while, especially when it becomes fully legal, and they're going to be great. But that kind of wraps that topic up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, CRON, that ticker, short-term and long-term play for me, and that's from what I've analyzed on the stock. I think that this stock, CRON, could see some nice, 10% gains in the next couple weeks, just based on the technical analysis on their chart. But all these companies, if you do some due diligence and look up, top cannabis stocks and just add them to your watch list. You don't have to buy any of them. Just watch how they move and wait for confirmation, and make a decision on that.
100%. And just to add on to Julian really quick, the CRON, I mean, I'm looking at their numbers right now. They have a PB of 2.4, which is great. I like looking at companies between 1 and 3. 1 and 3 shows it's priced very well. And it's 2.49 on earnings. It's positive on earnings quite a bit. So it's cash generative and it's earning per share. It's positive. So all good indications of a good buy opportunity.
And we're gonna give you one more stock pick too. Lucas is gonna tell you he's been 3 for 3 the last couple weeks.
Last 3 for 3.
Picks.
I'll tell you. 2 weeks ago I said fuel cell. I said I had a price target of 23 by Friday. It hit 22 on Wednesday that week. And then last week I said GDOT up 12% in a rally from about $20. Actually, no, hold up. I gotta pull GDOT. No, it went from $50 to $56. It was up 12%, and then a little bit of sell to $53. Still positive on the week, and this company is only beginning. We talked about fintech and how I like them a lot. Talked about renewable energy, how I like them a lot. These past 2 weeks, I've been doing my really hard looking at the indications of what I like and what I don't like, and I'm giving you guys the best I can possibly give you because I will never recommend a company, neither will Julian, that we don't have money in because that's not doing our due diligence as entertainment professionals on the stock market. And just to keep in mind, we're not professionals here. We don't manage 401ks.
We're entertainers. That's all
we're entertainers. We're like giving you recommendations because sometimes you might be in a group of friends that don't talk about stocks. Maybe we're your number one source, and we love to give you what we're looking at, what we have money in. So if we make money, you make money. Symbiotic in nation. And on that topic, I'm going to come at you with the top pick for me this week, and Julian will be following me. And I want to start off with none other than Sunworks, SUNW. Solar company. It does both commercial and residential. It's a huge one, and it's renewable energy. And I talked about this. This renewable energy sector is hot. It's hot. It's spicy. It's popping off right now. We all see it. Everything that has renewable energy, EV-esque like qualities, just renewable, is popping off. Everyone's loving it, and that's what this company is. It's Sunworks. It's currently, let me pull this up really quick. It's currently trading at, I think, $20 a share. I gotta make sure I'm right. $21.20. Bought it at $19. It was at $2.08 in December. You heard that right. $2.08 in December. Ran up to $19, up to $20. It hit $29 just last week. Had a nice cool sell off to $20. And we see another confirmation green candle going back up. This week, I'm predicting Sunworks will have a run up to $25 by Friday. I said 26, but I lowered down one more dollar. I think it's $25 by Friday by the end of the week. So far, 2 for 2 the past 2 weeks. Hopefully, I'm going 3 for 3. It's a low buy-in for a potential for high future demand is key. We talked about this with the cannabis companies, but really, this is a good swing play, but it's also a good hold. Right now, it's not positive on earnings yet right now, but this is a good swing play. But thing is, over time, Sunworks has a really good base. It does commercial and residential solar. It provides both to people's houses. It provides the companies, which is great. Some only do one or the other. They have a big blanket market. And what I like is that the demand's going to be huge in the future. Everyone's going towards solar. I'm getting solar really soon on my house. A lot of people are. So anything in that renewable energy sector is popping off. Like I said, that's SUNW, Sunworks. Get in if you want to. Julian, your pick.
Yeah, I love that. I love that stock. I think that's a great pick, Lucas. My stock for this coming week and the next couple weeks, honestly, is going to be a 3D printing metal company called Desktop Metal, ticker sign DM. I actually bought into this company earlier this week, and I'm already up 15% on my investment. But I think that this company still has room to honestly double in the coming months based on their market cap, and they have some upcoming catalysts as well. Basically, they just closed a deal with Ford Motors, and they're basically a company that's going to be 3D printing parts for cars to be built, like metal parts. And there really aren't a lot of companies that are doing this at all. We still build our own, we manufacture our own parts for these cars, and being able to mass produce a part or a piece based on printing it off of your computer.
This is DM, you said?
Yeah, Desktop Metals.
I'm pulling their chart right now. I like this.
It's a fairly new company. They IPO'd recently, but they've been showing steady growth. I think they're gonna run all the way up to $50 in approximately 2 months. So that's my 2-month price target. But this week, just add it to your watch list and see if it. I expect a little bit of a pullback because we had some big gains on
Yeah,
last week.
huge run up. I mean, they went from, I see, at $26 up to 31. I mean, that's a pretty big for a low cap stock.
Yeah.
That's a big run right there. I mean, it's at $22 just at the beginning of this month on the first. Actually, oh my gosh, you're right. It was at 22. My bad. $22 ran up to $31. It's even more than I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, so wait for that sell off,
Yeah,
and then look for that rebound, and then buy in.
Yeah, so if you, depending on what you're looking for, if you're doing a swing or a long term hold, I say get in whenever. If you're looking for a swing, I'd wait for a little pullback and then go in hard, because this is a company that, and a lot more companies are going to be coming out with this type of technology. We're being able to 3D print car parts consistently and at a rapid pace for high volume manufacturing. Especially with Ford. Ford's looking at releasing an electric vehicle soon.
Incredible.
I think that this has some huge catalyst.
I mean, I just added your stock to my watch list right now. I didn't even know that, so I love the look of this thing. It's incredible, and I love the idea of this 3D printing car parts, because that'll take away our demand and our supply chain from manufacturing that's in Asia and Southeast Asia, and that's an incredible plus.
DM Desktop Metal. But that's it for me. That's all my picks for this week.
That's all for me, guys. I hope you have a successful trading week, guys. Hope you the best. Get some gains out there. Do your due diligence, and stay healthy, guys. See you next week.
See you.
Peace.